Greetings and welcome to this episode of Let's Create Something with Trapcode Particular this time. And this video is sponsored by nothing at all. Nothing at all. Sometimes it's what you really need. So some of you have asked how I created this, and it's a couple of months ago, so I thought it was a little bit interesting to demonstrate you how to set up this kind of a pixelated retro cityscape scene with some kind of lateral movement. And to set this up I used particular and form, and as a post effect I've applied retroDither. So it costs $50, but it's not completely mandatory for this tutorial. It's just that I wanted to try this, and it allows you to get some kind of pixel effect, and if you're in a hurry, because real pixel art purists will call it a bit fake, because there's what you call rogue pixels. So it's just a post effect. It's just to save us some time. Maybe if you're in a hurry, to if you're into some kind of project that and you're into this pixel art stuff that you want to set up. So it's just some cool techniques at the same time with Trapcode Particular to set up distributed objects that are static but have animations in them. So yeah, let's get in After Effects, and step by step we're gonna recreate that together. So first of all, let's make a composition of a standard HD dimensions, 16:9 ratio. So let's make a comp. Let's call that cityscape, and let's make a new solid in there. So let's make a new solid, and let's call that particular, and let's apply particular right on there, and that's the default thing. So by default, what kind of a duration will we be wanting there? Let's go with let's start off with 300 duration of our comp there. So yeah, first of all, let's focus on our custom particles. So we're gonna set up some quick buildings. So let's make Control N. We're gonna make a new comp. Let's make it 500 by 500. Let's call this building 1. Enter, and let's make ourselves a new shape on there. So let's click on the rectangle here, and let's double click. So we've got a shape, and depending on what settings you've got here, you want to get rid of the stroke, so hit there, make sure that this icon has been clicked, and here you can set a solid color to the fill, and there we'll be allowed to select the color of our choice. So I'm gonna go for a dark purple there, something like that, or let's start with a neutral, and we'll come to this right afterwards. So right there, let's start by making it custom, this color. So right here we want to be able to change that from here. So let's make ourselves a new null, call this settings, and let's make ourselves a expression control, not a slider but a color control, and let's log this off. It's going to be called main color. Let's get back in our particle here, and since oops sorry there, let's get back on here, and if we click on the little lock here, we can keep this once we go into this composition. And now we're gonna simply alt click on the stopwatch there, and there we're gonna select our main color from there, and you'll see why. So let's go for that, and let's get in our options here. So right there, transform rectangle 1. Let's scale it down, but let's make sure that 250 is what we want to do here. And now when we scale it down, yeah, so let's bring this down to 250. And now when we scale it from here, we can have some scaling point right at the bottom where we want it. So let's make a basic rectangle here. That'll stand for our building shape. Let's make some, let's use form. So to make a grid, we're going to make a solid, call it form. Let's make it on top of that. We're going to apply form to that right there. Let's bring it on here. First of all, let's make sure that, let's go to base form, size X. Let's make it 500 by 500. Make sure that we have only one layer of depth. And there we can scale them up. And let's, instead of spheres, we can make them square. And let's let's make sure they're not too big. And let's decrease their amount in X. 34. Let's try the same there. So they'll be the same distance. And we can have them more close together, maybe a little bit bigger than that. Let's make them size 3 square, so we don't see much now. We just have our initial grid there, and let's mask it out. So an easy way that I can think of to do that, let's just simply double this layer, duplicate it, Control D, bring it on top here, and let's set this layer to alpha matte right here, and there. If we scale this down, it's not going to be visible, but it's using it as a matte. But we can get back in the options here, or not even just scale down the layer for that. So let's just go ahead and do that. And do we want less? Let's start off with less windows. So maybe I went a bit heavy on there. Let's start with something like that. Less. So a nice way to set up a grid. So there, right there, I'm happy with that. Let's keep it. Now on top of that, we're gonna create something to make it flicker, and something that's seedable. So we're gonna use it to procedurally generate our other Windows animations for the other buildings. So let's create a new solid. Let's call it flash map. It's going to be the map we use in form to make it flash. So first of all, we want to apply a fractal noise on there. So let's fetch it from our effects and preset panel, and let's make it block there, and let's make the complexity 1, so we have simply a base grid like that, and let's hit T so we can reduce the opacity, and let's try to align that with that. So we can go into transform here, and let's scale this down, and we can check off the uniform scaling. So let's start with horizontally. Let's make sure that each of our columns here fits in our columns here for the fractal. So right now, after 3, they're going outside. It doesn't need to be like that much of a precise thing, but let's just make sure that nothing is getting cut off here. So the way we're going to do that is simply by messing around like this, and we can maybe, like, I don't know if it's going to help to set the center right there, and then we can scale this down. And right here, I think we have it. So let's do it horizontally. They're going to be a little bit smaller. And let's move it vertically by doing that. And right now, they need to be even smaller than that. when you get it right, it doesn't need to be really perfect, but each square is in another kind of a square like that. So this flash map, we don't need it to be visible. Let's bring it back to 100%, and let's hit Control Shift C on there to pre-comp it, and let's make sure that we move all attributes. So this is going to be our flash map 1, and there, let's get right into there, and let's create an animation with that. So let's say our building, our main composition is duration of 300. Let's divide that by, let's make it 50 frames duration. So let's trim the comp there, and here at 50, let's get in the options, and we're gonna create a keyframe on the evolution. Let's hit U to reveal that. Let's bring this one at the beginning, and let's hit 1 here. Let's make sure that here in the evolution options that we've got the cycle evolution set up here. So once I go, you can hit J and K to go. Should be the same, but right in between we're gonna have this animation. So let's get back now in here, and we have this animation. We don't need this to be visible, so let's get inform in the layer maps in color and alpha, and as the layer, let's choose our flash map 1. Let's set that to map over XY, and now it's gonna get, we don't want them to get black, we want them to get transparent. So let's make it lightness to alpha. So the darker they'll get, the more transparent they'll get, and the more brighter they'll get, the more, well, it's gonna make our windows flash. So that's what I get when I test it out. The RAM preview, it's a little slow. I think it would be nice to be more hectic, but what's nice is that it's perfectly looping, because it's based off the fractal, and the fractal is looping perfectly right here. We can maybe make it faster. One quick way to do that would be just simply to make it revolve 6 times instead of only 1. So let's test it out, and right away we can see that it's a party in there. So alright, we got a, not in really detailed and really complex, but it's something that we can use as a base for our building shape. So let's make another one out of that. Let's make ourselves a little folder, call this building 1. Let's bring that in there, and let's start duplicating. So first, let's select our folders. There are some scripts to smart duplicate our folders, so but let's just do that manually. Control D, let's call this building 2 flash map 2. We could keep the same flash map, but let's get more variation in there. So let's get in our building 2, and right there we're gonna select our flash map 1, and while we hold Alt, we're gonna drag flash map 2 so it's a different one. Let's start by just making it a different seed, so we don't touch anything else but here the random seed, and it's gonna be a different result. So already it's gonna be a different type of a variation, but let's make it also more variated in terms of its shape. So this one is more tall and thin. Let's make it more squared maybe. Let's go in the content of our initial shape here, the rectangle. Let's get in the transform, and let's make it wider like that, and a little bit smaller there. So now our windows, they don't fit anymore. So what I like to do here is simply get rid of the, this is just the mask, remember, and it was based on the other building, so I'm just gonna get rid of that, and we're gonna pick up this one that we just made, and we're gonna duplicate it and bring it back on top of here, make it invisible, and so right there is a quick way to have it. We can manually scale it down here and choose another area, a different area for our little windows here. Maybe in this building it's kind of a different building. They only have windows on this side because here are some other parts of the building that it's made like that. I don't know. Maybe the windows are not exactly the same size, so let's do that. Let's get in the form settings here in the particles. Let's make them now we can't, the square here, I don't think that we can actually unproportionally scale it from here, but in this kind of situation it's not really big problem to unproportionally scale not our layer directly. So let's do that. We don't really mind. Let's do that. Let's make it 162. So right there is frame right there. It's gonna work, and I think we need a little bit more windows, so let's stretch it back like this. Bring it there. I don't know, maybe, and maybe you can even make some custom. This is a shape here. We can make new shapes if we've got it selected. I think let's just pick up here our rectangles, and we can add. Here I'm holding space to move it. We can add some custom windows here on the. We've added a rectangle 2 here, and let's set it up here. So we've got a custom row of window that doesn't go all the way up to the top. So that's. I don't know why I'm still not happy with it. I'm gonna put it this side. Let's go. All right, let's keep it. It's another building. We have our second building. Cool. Let's make a third one, but let's make it from the first one, because right here we've got a little bit more messed up settings. Let's start up from scratch. So let's duplicate our first one. Let's call that building 3 flash map 3. Get in the building, and we're back to this one. So don't forget, and we can keep the same, but let's get more variations there. Put the flash map, and right here we can make this one go faster. Maybe these people in this building are a little bit more hectic, so let's make it 10 times of a 10 times revolution, and let's change nothing more than our in the evolution options, the random seed there, it's at 0. Let's put 975. No particular reason for that, but you can put your date of birth, some numbers that's meaningful to you, put them in the random seed. Maybe you're gonna get some nice result. I don't know. So let's yeah, we've got this new building with let's change its shape also. So let's make this one more detailed. Let's make it like first let's get in the options. Let's get in our transform. Let's make this one more like half the size maybe, and really large. This one, it's gonna be one of those smaller types building. And let's adjust our, so just get rid of that, duplicate that, get this in here, make it invisible, and I'm gonna hit V to get this kind of an arrow, and I'm gonna rescale that. And let's try to get completely different settings in there. So let's get in the base form, and let's unproportionally scale that. So this one's gonna be, it's gonna have more of those taller windows once again, and let's make them smaller in the particle size. there, and let's have a little bit more, maybe something like that, and a little bit more maybe there. Let's get back to our shape, leave some area on the bottom where when there's not going to be any windows there, and let's move that around. So now our grid might not be exactly lining up with it, so maybe it's something that you're gonna be wanting to fix, but I think that it's still like having some, you can see some are getting triggered at the same time, because see, if I put this back there, it's not really like, ideally you would want this to line it up, so I think we could like tie it to that, and if when we scaled it, it would have proportionally scaled, but since we've changed more these settings here, it's let's make it from there. So let's go right in here, we're gonna log this down, and we're gonna lock this one down as well. Let's make a new comp viewer. We can keep this one on the side here, and let's get back. So right there we can go in our transform settings, we're in here, we can see it there at the same time, and let's line it up once again. We have our settings here, let's do that, and it's not gonna go live, but once we unclick, like once we drop the click, it's gonna refresh. So it's maybe gonna make it a little bit harder to do, but let's go with what we can. So right now we need them to be real thinner than that. So 28 and 30. I'm setting it up horizontally, so all of them are fitting now. Let's bring it, and let's make them taller. And so real taller. 44. Six, just a little bit, and it's gonna be like a 48 in there, and that sums it up. I think we've got it correctly aligned. So you can have some kind of a mathematical, more scientific way of setting it up, but you can also do those kind of visual alignments. So now we can get rid of that, we can get rid of that, and we have our main thing now that's working perfectly. Let's set it off, and now when we look at our pattern, why is it, let's refresh that, and maybe it's the seed, let's look at it. So yeah, it seems that there are some, you can also mess around with the brightness and contrast. So if I do, like, some settings will allow only certain lights, and certain lights will always be off. So I think let's boost the brightness, and with that settings, let's see what we get. So all the lights are really open, and only some of them flickers on and off. Maybe some variation, that's nice, but I think the opposite, no, I mean, let's keep the contrast, but let's make it dark. So that's kind of the opposite, and let's change the seed. I think this one's not gonna, why are there some, let's offset. Oh no, we don't want to offset that too much. So we've got one cycle, and it seems that they are gonna be, well, okay, let's try that. Alright, that's some kind of a pattern. Let's brighten it up. So you see them together. Ah. All right, let's keep it like that. I think it's maybe too fast for this one. Let's make it go slower. And let's look at that. Let's force refresh to make sure that. And does it loop? Yeah, it does loop. So that's our pattern for this building. And on this one, let's make something a little bit of details like on top of that. So for some roof details, not really complex details, but let's duplicate this, or should we stay in the same shape? Yeah, let's get in there and duplicate our rectangle. Now we have a rectangle 2, and then let's scale it down, bring it up. So we're just gonna have this kind of an area here. That's kind of, and let's once again duplicate that. So I'm selecting the rectangle 2 word here and duplicate, Control D. And this thing, let's make some kind of a chimney here. So I'm gonna bring it over there. And right now it's really tall, but really what we're going to see is like a really small part there. And let's duplicate that once more. Bring that over there. Maybe. So right here we have some details, and even I don't know that this is right, but let's do that. And right on the same layer here, let's make some kind of a custom shape here. It's got a nice angle on it, like that. Alright, so that's another one. Got some details on the top. Let's duplicate our first one, and I'm gonna try to keep this quick. So right back to our base. Let's make this approximate same shape, because this one like a standard, most standard shape building. Let's make one that's right there. And rectangle options, scale rectangle. Let's make it a little bit wider. Something like that, even maybe a tiny bit smaller, because on this one, and let's hit V, reduce the mask on that, and let's change the pattern here. Let's do that, and I forgot to bring this one. Let's do that. Get over here, change the settings a little bit. Evolution options, random seed. Right, like that. And let's keep the same ratio. I know how to change it. but let's try not to lose that much time on that. And let's make another shape on top of that. So I'm going to duplicate the base one, and let's get right here, transform rectangle 1. Let's bring this one right there, and we need to, can we do that with that? We can't scale it. Like, we need controls that will allow us differently to manage this shape. So right, let's delete all that. Let's go there, and let's make our own. So let's make sure that we've got nothing selected, and let's first make ourselves a rectangle that's a little bit bleeding outside of that. So I'm gonna click there and hold shift, and click on the other side, and then I'm gonna click a little bit upwards there, and still holding shift, I'm gonna click there, and I'm gonna try to align it. And once I close it, it's either gonna be perfectly aligned, but if I clicked wrong, like this one should be straight, but if this one is like misaligned, to make sure that both of these are correctly aligned, let's view the grid. Let's snap to the grid, and let's select this, bring it here, and let's take this one, bring it here by holding shift here, and now we know that they are correctly aligned. If we want this equidistant, we have the grid now, so where is it? Our center. Alright, so it's in the middle of there. So from the middle one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's grab both of these, and let's drag them by holding shift right there. Now we've got a rectangle, but what we couldn't do before, we can grab the one on top, and we're gonna bring it there to make some kind of a house shape. And or no, before we do that, let's undo. Let's align it with our building perfectly. So let's remove our grid, because we didn't make it like align on the directly on this grid, our initial building. So let's uncheck that. Right, so now we know that this is a straight line if we've got both of these selected. I know this is a bit tedious, but there, sometimes this is exactly how I work, and we're gonna align that. So right now I've brought it really close to it. I'm zooming on it. I'm gonna hit Control Shift H, and it seems to be alright. So let me show you. Sometimes it's not gonna be really correctly aligned, so there's gonna be some semi-transparency there. You want just to, I have them both selected yet. Once again, let me show you. So we have our shape. Where's the path? There's our path. So let's select this one, hold shift, select the one on top, and now we can hit the arrow, but this is right in the way, so we can hit Control Shift H. Now we don't see it, so it's still there. And if we hit the left arrow a couple of times, or maybe with shift there, shift left arrow, because I'm really zoomed in, until it's completely the same color. So right, it's really scientific way, eh? Let's go and do the same on the other side. So let's bring it right about where it seems to be, but let's make sure that we're on the same level as this other one. Alright, correct. Now, I'm sure there must be really more easy way to do that, but in the end we can come in here, and if we move this 1 2 3 4 5, I'm holding shift 6 7, let's say. Let's do the same on the other side with this one. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and then we can have both of them selected. Bring this down no matter how we like it, and we have this parallelogram, and it's not even a line anymore. Why am I showing you this if I can get it right? So what does happen? 1 2 3. Oh, let's go further than that. 1 2 1 2. Yeah, it's not even a line anymore, but maybe it's like that. I showed you all that for nothing, because we need to we didn't align it right on top. So now just make sure that we don't have any line there, and bring it right about there. Should be okay. And we've got this kind of pointy type top shape building. Some are like that, and they might have some different kinds of light on top. Let's keep it simple. So what's our top shape? That's our top shape. All right, let's go there, and let's make ourselves, let's have nothing selected, and let's pick this up. Let's make a rectangle. Let's make our rectangle white. Alright, and let's see. Let's keep it straightforward. So I'm gonna hit T, the opacity, go 10 frames or 5, and then I'm gonna select the first one, Control C, Control V, and I'm gonna alt click on there, property loop out type cycle, to make sure that this loops. Alright, then I'm gonna duplicate this shape layer. I'm gonna bring it right there, and I'm gonna simply duplicate it again and bring it right there. So not everything needs to be a form or some kind of procedural grid, and let's do that. So we'll kind of have some looping offset animation there, and they probably are a little bit too large, so let's proportionally scale that. And they don't have their anchor point at the center, so it's kind of messy to line them up, but let's bring that here, and I should have gotten a much brighter color because we don't see our building that much, but let's scale them back up, bring it down. We don't need this to be really precise, and let's make it a comp. So Control Shift C, and let's call this top windows. It's gonna be there, and is it gonna be looping? No. Come on. It's gotta be looping at 30. That's because, yeah, we can't do that if we do that. A little fast on that. So we want to make this loop works as a loop. Alright, it's not the most finest loop work, but let's keep it like that. As an animation, it's just gonna flash like that. Alright, so let's mask that to our top shape. So we're gonna pick up this one, duplicate it, bring it on top, and now we can simply scale that down, bring it back up there, and if we set that to Luma Matte, or I mean Alpha Matte, there we're gonna have some kind of a windows there. And how many buildings? 4. Oh my god, this is taking forever. Let's make another simple one for our 5th and last one. So we're gonna pick up once again the one from the beginning. No, it's 5. Get in there, change that for that. This is going to need to be a different seed number. Alright, let's keep it simple. So our shape here, the one on the bottom, let's grab that, and let's make one really tall and thin. And this, since our grid is all around, we can simply drag this up and bring this, and it reminds me of a video game called Rampage. Alright, let's keep it like that. That's cool building. It's looping. Let's not get it any more complicated. So we've created our custom particles. Now we need to comp them in one comp. So let's pick up building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm holding control to add them to my selection, and then let's drag this to the little icon there. It's gonna open this little panel. It's gonna ask us make a single composition, yes, not a multiple, and sequence layer, yes, we don't want any overlap. So let's hit OK, and it's gonna layer it out like that, and it's gonna be, how come it's 254 frames? What kind of a number is that? So this is 51 frame. Let's make it 50, so there it keeps it more. So all these should have been 50 frames. So this is looping at 50 and 51. So yeah, they should measure 50 frames. So one quick way we can do that, I'm gonna select all my building comps here, and I'm gonna put the link for that in the description below. But here's a little quick script. It's called selected comps changer, and here I'm gonna grab that, and I'm gonna simply tell all my comps to be 50 frames, just to make sure. Now they are 50 frames, so I will redo this. Building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, drag this there, right settings. All right, so 249. So we can, if we want to keep it, I don't think it's necessary, but let's start with that. We've got 5 buildings. This is going to be called building particle. Let's get in here, our basic default comp, and let's start the real particle work. So let's bring this in there, and we're gonna let's first do something before we set it up as a particle. So right here in this comp, we want the bottom of our building to be aligned at the center. It's not that it's completely necessary, but it's one of the only way, maybe if you know a different way to do that, to align our particle center point, but just to make sure that if we scale it from the particular effect, that it'll scale from the bottom. If you want to make some kind of an effect where each building grows and you don't want to animate it on that, you want it to be custom on the particular effect. So let's make this composition, let's keep it the same size, because those buildings, they don't need to be that big. We're going to keep them small, so let's keep it 500 by 500, but we're going to scale all that down. So let's select them all, hit S, make them 50%, and we're going to align them we're going to make sure that they are aligned with the top of our... Hey, why won't it do it? So it won't go all the way to the top. When I have them all selected and I do that, it's got to be set to composition. All right. So that's... So now that I've got them all aligned to the top, they won't ever spill, but their center point will be at the center. And yeah, we scaled them down, but it doesn't really matter. We always have the option here to have not the windows but the shapes themselves vectorized, but we can keep it like that. If we needed a bigger, we can make a 1000 composition, but let's do that. So back in our cityscape, let's bring this. So you see right about this size is approximately how we want them. We don't want them to scale them much more bigger than that. All right, so we've got particular. Now let's get, this is the latest version, so it's got the explode behavior, and that's useful for some reason. If you want just to have something distributed and you want to have a long duration of life, you want them to be born all at the same time. So that's what we want. We want to do explode. So poof, that's an explosion. So we're gonna lay out all our building. And I'm gonna show you how to make to distribute, like a cityscape is a perfect example to demonstrate that, but it's gonna be one of the many ways to make something loop out of particular, mostly for when you want to move and not have, like, there are other ways that you can make particular loop, and it's when really particular is all in motion and everything moves, and I'll show you that in another tutorial, but Aaron Rabinowitz and many others have shown this technique before. So, but this is not another way to make something that are statics and have a movement, like lateral movement, like we're gonna do. So let's look at what I'm talking about. So let's demonstrate it. I'm gonna, first of all, it's set to explode. So yeah, we don't need to put any keyframes, and it's gonna create particles on the first frame and emit them. So we can have them emit for a super long amount of time. So let's make sure that they're all the way there. So let's make them 20 seconds. So I don't want to use any, I don't want them to move, basically. I just want a static distribution. So let's turn off the velocity, and let's make it not a point but a box, and let's make sure that our emitter size X is the width of our composition. Let's go with that, and the Y, let's make it 0, because that's going to be our floor kinda, and we can increase or decrease the parallax, like by having more building in the distance with that. But right now it's points only. We can increase that, and let's set up our building. So I'm gonna get back to some kind of close to default settings at first, and instead of spheres in our particles, we're gonna use a sprite, and nothing's gonna be there, but we gotta set our texture here. Let's get into this, and we've got our composition here. It's not going all the way to the end, but let's go. Let's try that. Let's set building particle. It's gonna give us an error message. It likes really small composition, it tells us, but it can use them anyway. But you see, there is really tiny. Let's increase the the size. Let's increase the size, and right here it's all the same building. It's our fat building, and by default it's using the time sampling as a current time, so it will just generate them, and according to where we are in our sequenced layered custom particle composition, it's gonna play them all. We want to set the current time. We want that, instead of current time, we want to set it to split clip loop. So once we do that, we've got more things to change here. It asks us for the numbers of clips we've got in there, and they're all, this is important. For this, sometimes can be a bit tedious to work, but we want all our clips to be the same duration, basically. So the number of our clips is 5. Let's set that, and let's test out. So right now, if I test it out, you see like there are some moments where it's you can see some glitches happening, and right there it doesn't seem that the explode is happening on the frame 0, but on the first frame we want something to happen. So let's just pick up our layer, and let's hold Alt and hit page up, so we're starting on something, and something's not right here, because even though our they're all the same duration and they should be looping, but at some, like, it changes as not the right place. So if sometimes that happens, what you can try to do is make this one frame more than it is. So right now I'm gonna set that, instead of 250, I'm gonna set it to 251. So we're gonna have an empty frame at the end, but I don't think it's ever gonna bother us. But in fact, this last frame of the composition is gonna be frame 250, and I think this should work, or else I've lost completely my point. Did it change? So no. So that's something that has been bothering me sometimes when I try to setting up custom particles, and I want to use many of them that are variants and that loops, so they are all set up correctly, and it ends up not working well, because it likes to have it in a specific way. But once you find what it likes, it works fine. So we have a static distribution of buildings. They are there, and I can change the random seed there to have them kind of distributed in some other kind of fashion. I can increase the parallax effect there, and it's cool. Let's make a background layer, or let's first select, like, we want to bring this down. Let's make ourselves a camera, so Control Alt Shift C, and I'm gonna make this the default settings. Everything should be the same. Control Alt Shift Y. We're making ourselves a little null here. Let's make it pink, and let's simply grab our camera tool here, and I'm gonna click and hold shift and get it to go down like that. But we're having some perspective. We want it kind of a 2D. We want to have it 2D. We don't want this, but we want some that are further in the distance, that goes a different speed when we move around laterally. So one way we can do that is like set our camera to have no angle at all, like we would like basically have stuff that that have no perspective at all. But I think we're gonna also lose like and it's getting in the fog there, and then in the vanishing point. But let's keep it like that. What we're simply gonna do in this case, let's hit R on the rotations for the null that we've connected our camera to, and we're gonna X rotate it until it's around the right point where it's kind of flat, like that, 5.5. So I don't know that this is totally the better way to do it, but it's gonna work for us. Let's change that, and let's change the seed. Let's make sure that we fill it all the way, and that it looks interesting, that it's got some nice variation to it. Let's make ourselves a background. So Control Y, simple background layer. I'm gonna bring this down the stack. So right, it's gonna be some water here, and it's gonna be the sky on. And I'm not gonna make anything complicated. Let's see. Let's make a ramp there. Let's make a purplish sky, and I don't know why I must have got this inspiration of color from somewhere in terms of retro video gaming, but I don't know. I can't really tell. So let's make almost like, let's make it try to keep it as flat as possible, or even if we make some grading in there, let's go and add the posterize effect on that. So that's one way that we can get some levels of cool types of sky variation, maybe, like really quickly. So that's one way. It's kind of a bit hard to control it. We can keep it like that. Let's make it like really about being a flat color, maybe. Or let's keep it like reset, and let's put a tritone. A tritone will make it in sort that we have more of those colors. So white instead of white. Let's pick up our bright color. Let's pick up a darker one. Posterize that. So yeah, I thought it didn't work exactly that way, the posterize effect. So that's something we can keep as a sky background. But let's see. Let's change that. I want more control on that. So let's go ahead with the color Rama. And there. What I'm gonna do, it's not necessarily more control, but I'm gonna start with 2. Now the red, I wanted some kind of purplish, and that it's gonna be some kind of purplish as well. Purplish, more saturated. And now, like, I can can make, I've got a gradient all the way up to that, from this color to that color, so I can make like random points in there. Just click and click OK, and then when I uncheck that, that's kind of better way of controlling what I was going for. And if you don't want them to be uneven, there you have it. And if at some point you want to oh yeah, so make sure you keep that if you want to keep control of what's down there. But say that we're gonna cut this off anyway, we're gonna put some water over to that, so maybe we can add one more here and make this last one a little bit darker. I don't know. It's pretty dark on this one. So yeah, something like that would be what I would go for more. And let's make some basic water, so let's not lose that much time over that. We're gonna make a new solid, so Control Y, and this is the Control Y, and let's make it a blue color, some kind of blue like that, maybe a little bit more desaturated. And let's put a height of 400. Yeah, so let's line that down there. So let's make it approximately around the base of our stuff here. And let's add a ramp on that. And let's add a colorama. And we're gonna do the same thing. So output cycle. We're gonna start with a ramp blue, and this one is gonna be the darker one, and this one is gonna be the brighter blue. And I'm gonna click here, click there, click there, and click there, and then uncheck that, and I've got some cool water. And I want to make maybe some layer of foam on top of that, so it's gonna be pretty bright, the last line. Or maybe it doesn't work that way. Sometimes things are really not that simple in pixel 8-bit world, but let's do it like that. And this is gonna be a layer that we want to be a little bit overblown like that, because we're gonna make it move up and down, and it's gonna be our old school retro way of having this animated to put some kind of a water movement in there. So let's quickly do that. Let's output 90 frame animation. Why is it not looping? Because our lights, oh yeah, it's got to be a multiple of 50. So right now frame 1 and frame 3 is the same. We can go 100, so multiples of that. Shouldn't have any problems with that. And hey, we didn't make any movement yet. We're gonna do that very soon with our city, I mean. So let's move our water. Let's add a keyframe. We're doing this manually. Yeah. Let's do that quickly. I know there are some scripts way to do that, but let's just make a keyframe at the center, and then we have a basic looping movement. We made it 100 frames. Let's bring that to 50 or even to 25, since it's multiple of that. And let's make sure it loops, so alt click here on the stopwatch, property loop out type cycle, and we have let's solo it, so we have some detail on here. And if we want more detail, we can keyframe, like make sure the first and the last is the same. But let's go to our colorama, and right here you can change, make sure we don't mess up anything, just like add up some different But yeah, sometimes it's gonna move. It's not gonna be that much of a smooth movement for the colorama, probably because it's only a 16-bit thing. But let's not have the colorama output cycle animation. Let's just have that straightforward, really straightforward. So let's have some motion of that, and let's make it loop. So I'm gonna get rid of that, and this should really be darker than that, right down there. Yeah, starting to look pretty nice. And yeah, we have a little bit more space than that for our water, but let's make sure that as it goes up and down, it doesn't rise too high, rise too high. Oh, I've messed up my keyframes. Let's do it again. Frame 25. Come over here. So that's as low as we can go with our water, and this is too high, so I'm gonna pick up the first and last one. So this is, let's just move it tiny bit up, just like that. We don't want to overflood our city here, but we want at least enough so it seems interesting, and that's why I wanted to keep it like this activated. That's why I wanted to keep it some row down here without any windows, because right at the bottom there would look kind of silly if the water can go to the windows levels. But yeah, let's start with that. So we have our particular system. Let's save this. I'm gonna call this 2, and right now they're all the same color. We could color them with the sprite fill if we have, like, this would be a nice way of setting them up with, if we didn't want any window details, but simply get the different colors from there. So something that looks kind of more like the kind of colors that we want. But if we do that, we kind of lose our, it's cool, it's nice, but we can't undo that. This, can we undo, redo? I can't undo what I change here. But yeah, we lose the detail. It's coloring over our windows, and if we do that, sprite colorize it, you know, also be nice, but depending on if we want our lights to actually be the color we choose, then yeah, we've got this problem of so let's set that to sprite, and if we really want some variation, we can like have more particles and customly change their color, but let's keep them all the same. And we have our setting here, so we can still affect our buildings with it. So that's something at least that we have. I think there are some parts that are not connected to it, so we would have to do that manually to go connect those. I'm not gonna do it because it's like those little parts in here, I don't know, because there are some different layers. I forgot about it. Let's just make sure that here we've got fill, and it's this line of code here that we want applied on everywhere. So on the fill, of this. Is it like this? Fill. Control C, copy. Go on the fill there, paste. Doesn't work. So color. Copying that. There. Is it the right one? Okay, no. So we're looking for, what is it, the one that we're looking for? Oh, it's the one that's called shape 1 there. So alright, making sure that it's all the same color. I think where else we had it, this top part there, on the top part there. So right there, our fill color is just paste once again, still in the clipboard. It's gonna be all right. All right, everything is in place. Control refresh. If it was red, I need to force refresh it. Yeah, I need to. So that point is proven. Let's go back to some kind of a darker purplish color. I don't know what exactly is close to what we had at first, but I think it must be something around this. Let's get it. No, that's much too blue. So anyway, if we want some variations in terms of color in there, and there's also a downside to it, but let's get in the particular, right in the visibility section. So I would like there to, there's not actually a fog setting in particular like there is in mirror or tau, and there is like the equivalent, which is the far start fade and far vanish, but I'd like to be able, it gives transparency. I'd like to be able to give it some like color, because we can see through, and that's a bit problematic, but let's find like what seems right, you know, just so that the ones on the back are not exactly the same, end up being exactly the same color, but the ones on front are not like exaggeratedly transparent. So right now, if I go to this and something like those values, anyway, when we add the other effect on top of that, it's gonna make it even more variation. So that's something that seems correct. And let's add our actual movement. So this is the tricky part. Now we're gonna need to duplicate our particular effect to in order to do this trick, because we need a different instance of this, and we could do it with lights, and probably next time we do this I'm gonna do it a different way, but this time let's duplicate our particular effect. So keep in mind that now we're gonna have to manage stuff that everything in the first and the second will have to reflect. So they are some ways that you can, like some scripts that will duplicate particular with a different instance of it with all the settings connected, but we don't necessarily want all of them with some expression on them, because it might slow things down. So we're gonna manually connect what we want to connect, but let's keep in mind that if we set it up like really as we want it on a first instance before we duplicate it, we might end up not losing that much time retweaking it back. But yeah, so I think at this point we're looking at this and it looks like Okay, this needs to be darker now, I think, all together. And let's not lose the train of thoughts. So let's yeah, we're happy with what we have. Our custom particle animation is looping. We're correct with the scale we have now. It might have been stretched a little. If we want to keep it unscaled, like vector, the edge is really sharp here. We can always get in our building particle here, right on the layer, and set it to that mode. And it's not gonna change anything because those inside have to be in that mode as well. And is it gonna change anything? Let's force refresh. Yeah, okay. So yeah, they're gonna be much smaller if we do that. Our thing is still gonna be set up to loop, so if you ever for some reason you need to have this as vectors, then keep in mind that you're definitely gonna have to go back in here and increase the size. So right now it looks about the same. I mean, I don't think it's quite necessary to have it as vectors. We have them at this size and it's pretty okay. So and I'm not aiming to do anything like super incredibly detailed, just demonstrating the technique. So right now let's duplicate our particular effect. Or first of all, let's not do that first. Let's move it. Let's add the keyframes. So let's go to world transform, and gonna keep it simple. So we're gonna move it once is width. So X offset. We're gonna create a keyframe at the beginning, and let's get to frame 100. Our loop point, and let's offset it 1920 pixels to the left. So right now we have some spills. Can we zoom in there? Yeah, we want it to be all gone. Now all we need to do is duplicate our effect, right? And let's get back at the beginning. So we have this. First of all, it's got to keep the same seed and everything, and it won't, like, it will totally replace the other one, because you can duplicate the layer here. But what I'm talking about is that let's see, let's make this one different. So let's move it the emitter position, not the world this time. So as we move this, we don't see the other one behind, because we need the rendering here, the blend mode in the rendering section, we need that to be set to normal. So this should be by default what you get in particular, but this, so I'm gonna undo. So now I've just duplicated the effect. I'm gonna set the blend mode to normal, and I'm gonna get in the position X and Y, and there's no keyframe on there. Remember, we keyframed the world position. Now this is a different setting. I'm gonna simply type minus 1920 in the X, so that'll fill the gap here. So now, logically, we start here, we move to this all to the left, and as we get here to the last frame, it should be approximately the same, but now we might stack it up in a different order, because now this one is getting on top. So let's bring this one back to none, and let's bring it on top here, and this is the one that will set to normal. So a little switcheroo here, and let's see if everything is right. Yeah, so first frame is this, last frame is that, and right in between there are some buildings moving laterally with some parallax motion. And let's set the end of our... Alright. Do we have one of them disappearing? Is that what we're getting here? Looks like it is. Let's force refresh, maybe some issue in the cache, and yeah, at this time it seems that it was an issue in the cache, so I'm gonna test it out again, and it doesn't seem to flash. So right now we didn't pre-render anything, so there is a couple of instances of form in there that are set on fractal to animate the windows. It's all set up to loop. It's rendering pretty fast. Not that it's something that extremely complicated, but yeah, here we could have set up a different main custom color if we wanted to have some means to make, I don't know, maybe these window color should have looked nice if they're yellow, or any other color that you would think is seem right. So that's how I make static things look. And remember, they have to get their lifetime long enough so they're standing there. They're born just at the first frame of a particular. Like some other means of moving static stuff with particular is even easier than that. Like if you set the physics time to 0, but this technique involves that you won't be able to have internal animations in your custom particles, because everything will go on stop. So that's also what you can do. Like you select, you build something with particular, then you have it animate, and then you see it's nice, you freeze it with the time physics factor so it doesn't move, and then you have a static frame, and you can use the same trick I did. So let's bring our water down, grab all the keyframes, and and this, like, can we get it even more flat than that? Because now we've stretched it more in the distance. So 6.5, 6.2, not exactly. And now let's bring our water up. And that makes it a little bit more sense. And let's like this area here in between the city and the window is kind of bugging me, so let's add something like a detail to unbug ourselves with that, if it's ever the case. So let's simply have nothing selected here, and we're gonna yet create another shape layer. This time let's not add anything in the fill, let's make it only a stroke, And let's make it some kind of a bright gray, and we're gonna simply make a line like that. So I'm holding shift for it to be straight entirely, and it's on top of everything right now. So I'm gonna put it just behind the water, and let's hit Control Shift H. So that thing is simply a line. I can make it wider, thicker if I increase the stroke size. But right in the stroke settings here, let's go in the content, in the stroke properties there, let's go to the dashes, and we can click here. So we have like some posts or some like fences, something like that. You can make it thinner maybe, and I would like to have a bigger of a gap in between. So let's hit once again on the plus sign here, and that will add a setting here that was not there before, and then we can stretch that. And we even have an offset setting here, so we can make this move in some kind of way that will give us even more parallax. So let's do it quickly. We want this to move really fast, so let's make it 5 frames, and let's find our loop point. So right now it's let's set that to 0. Is it no, it's not the gap that I want to keyframe, it's the offset. So let's do that, and let's take a picture, Shift F8, and let's move this. So right, the gap is 29 and the dash is 6. So can we say that minus 29 and then minus 6? Yeah. So minus 35 is the number that we're looking for. See, sometimes I do stuff visually, and sometimes I can actually understand simple mathematics. So let's set it off to loop, and then we've got some kind of a fence animation that's going, and we've got to make sure that it doesn't get, the water doesn't flow under it, or maybe just rise the sea, yar. And yeah, right, and now it's, why isn't my water, I'm always forgetting about that. So my water, if I ever want to rise you, I have to grab all the keyframes if I don't want to mess things up. So is it fine? Is it looping? Yeah, I think it's pretty. And now it's all about, like, maybe our posts, they look like they go super slow. Let's solo them. So yeah, it's not quite fast enough. So let's keep this multiple. We're gonna instead multiply the value, since we know that this loops. So like, I would like it to go like 4 times faster than that. So let's do that. And now it goes so fast that it actually looks like it's going the other side. So let's try a different value. Maybe let's multiply that by 3. And this is kind of, I don't know that you can see it in the compression, but you can see it go both ways. It's going one way, but it looks like it's going the other. Let's see how that. So yeah, that's seems to have, not that it makes perfect sense, but it gives us some parallax detail. It's not going at the same speed as our. Now, if I wanted to make sure that it's really fast, how can I bring this effect, like make sure that the first frame is that, the second frame is that, and now it looks like flashes like that, but and it at the same time looks like it's slow, but yeah, I think that's, if you focus on that movement, it can get you dizzy. All right, so let's finish this off with the little effect of retroDither. So on top of all that, I think we can do it on an adjustment layer rather, or we can simply bring that in a new comp. And once again, I'm gonna put this thing in the description below, or I'm pretty sure there are some tutorials that are available elsewhere on the net that will show you how to make some kind of a procedural, halfway decent pixelated effect, post effect on top of that, or then you can like really animate it the traditional way, hand by hand, and have no rogue pixels at all. But let's apply retroDither, and right away it's really cool. By default it's setting it to 1 bit, and well, our main idea is there, and let's increase that to some more resolution. And since everything is already like set up to not be very much detailed, we can keep our color palette to something that's very low, but mostly the downscale here is the more you add, the more you increase that, the more it'll kind of look pixelated, and that would end up making it look like it's some cool retro video game, like in some kind of an intro where you have your little character running with his coach along his side, and that must be where I got the inspiration for that. So yeah, can have it even more low frequency. This effect is really cool. It's not the end of the world. Like, there are some things that you can do with that. Like, this seems like it's on an old Macintosh. I don't know. It's got its uses. I would recommend it. They didn't pay me anything for that purpose, but I recommend it if you're in a hurry. If you want to make it like real, because it's gonna there's some approximation going on. Like when we look at old school video games, there are some that, like, especially in the era where there was sprite scaling, it became like this would look normal. But prior to that, like in the 8-bit era, they would never be a pixel like that's half the color, because they really, in reality, they had just like 16 color. They couldn't afford, like when it moved, like every pixel would be in shape. Like when you see, like when it moves like that, it's got what you call like rogue pixel. It's approximations, but it ends up giving it like some kind of nice look anyways. But see, now we don't have enough color to kind of have some flickerings here and there. But yeah, do we still have our, oh no, we don't have the weird effect. It's apply on the water. Can we do that? Like, let's apply CC composite and let's make a mask. And yeah, is that, yeah, it's, if we add the CC composite on top of the retroDither and then we make a mask, it'll kind of allow us to bring the water out of the effect simply because of that. And we have to set it in front. So yeah, we have to uncheck the RGB only. So that's what's happening. Yay. So that's how I got it going. It's not the most incredible effect in the world, but yeah, it can get some work done when you got some pixel art that you have to do. If you're involved in a project that's got pixel art in it, then you don't have the skills to do traditionally. You can use that, can absolutely get the situation in your hands. Alright, so this was great. It's fun to have something a little bit different sometimes. I have plenty more tutorials, most of them using Trapcode, Tao, and After Effects. So if you like rendering and if you like experimenting, go subscribe on everything. I don't really like to preach like that, but yeah, look at I've got 32 of them or something like that. So go check that out and leave your message in the comment, and let's talk about this. If you've got nice other ways that you can do that, I know that I could show you a completely different way. If we have an emitter here like that's off screen, like emitting these buildings there, but really this is completely valid. And now we don't want to do that, but since we didn't like make our floor thing, it's just working 2D, but I don't know, there might be some kind of a situation where that exactly what you need to set up. And right before I leave you off on that, let me just remind you something, that now that we've duplicated our particular system, it's still on the same layer, but we have to decide which one is the one we're going to use as the main one. So in this case, this first one we did the particular. Let's link at least the random seed, you know, because this number here has got to be the same. So here I'm gonna select the layer, hit E. Here on top of there, I've got particular number 1 open, alright? Not particular number 2, and in here I'm gonna go see particular number 2. So right down here is number 2, right up here is number 1. So right here, everything I want to connect, so most importantly, this is something like sometimes I'm just gonna scrub this value here, so I'm gonna alt click stopwatch here and do that. So let me demonstrate here. We've got our loop going on. If I change this number here, and now we've got a completely different result here in front of us. And if I move along, it's gonna still loop. And if I don't have this code here selected, it would be still this old number here. So once I get here, it's not at all the same frame. It'll still be the motion of the first package of things, and then the second package is going to be distributed in not the same way, so that's why it doesn't allow it to work. So make sure that if you change something, you change it in the other one. So nice way to do that is to connect all this with the pick whip there, and same thing for the size, the emitter size, like right here. If I were to change that, like it would only change on the left part and not on this one. But if I change the emitter size Z here, let's do that. Let's connect it here, and now it'll affect it everywhere. And if I verify that, now we have to set our things up correctly for things to be out the frame on the loop point, but it would actually be the same thing. And some things that are not the size random here that we didn't change, in fact, that we could get even more. This is something that, since it doesn't have a stopwatch, we can link it to the other one. So if we change it, if we were ever to change it here, if we have the same seed number, we have to manually copy this amount here and go add the where is it, article, And let's get in the size random 84, and alright, since he's got the same seed, it's gonna work. Is the size something also we want to connect to that? To, of course, and then be able to change it. So yeah, now one easy way to fix that, I can make the system a little bit thinner, because of course we've got to compensate for some of this space these buildings are taking up. But once again, always make sure that this, I didn't connect it. I was about to change it, and let's connect that to that. Now let's look at our thing. We still got a piece here. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, see you next time.